So it's interesting that I'm now speaking to a group such as yours with the kind of background that I just told you about. But let me take, now what I'm going to do is I think I have 45 minutes, and, but I'm going to stop in half an hour. So I'll try to keep track of the watch. But 15 minutes we'll have question and answers, right? We'll have a conversation. So just get ready, make notes, you know, as I speak. If something comes to your mind, just make a note and then we'll talk about some of those things. That's much more interesting way of doing it, right? So now enable, I'll tell you a little bit so that you get an idea of the context of what we are talking about today. So I started Enable with 13 people in 2008. I had just come out of Millennium Information Technologies, and there we ran, there are two parts to Millennium. One is a software business that became very, very famous because they built the fastest trading engine in the world, automated trading engine. But we were part of another business called enterprise and service provider business. There we were doing more of what you all might know as systems integration business. Server, storage, network, security, that sort of thing. But that business was the more profitable one. And it is the profits that we earned from that company that allowed Millennium Software to sustain itself and finally being able to be bought over by London Stock Exchange for $30 million. So when I came out of Millennium, what did I want to do? I wanted to start an IT company. But what was going to be different about us? And we'll talk about differentiation in a minute. I found, by that time I had already been in IT for well over 20 years. The thing I realized is that a lot of companies spend a lot of money on IT, millions of dollars on IT, but they have very little to show for that investment. They can't show real business value or outcome. So CEOs, when you go to talk to them, they said, Mama Mokaka, I don't know about IT, you go and talk to the IT manager. IT manager doesn't know a lot about business. That's why your degree is interesting, because you're doing management and IT. We'll talk about that. So he doesn't understand the business and the business challenges and all that. IT manager doesn't, no clue. So he'll tell you to talk about servers and storage and all that. So we decided, how can we use IT to make an impact on business? So we started off, and to cut a long story short, just 7 years after we started, today, we are about 120 employees. And you spoke about providing opportunities to people. We'll talk about that. And we have 120 people. We do about $15 million worth of business, but that's changing very fast. Because last year, we did about 13, 14 million. In March 31st, we'll close our business. But we have already got a letter of intent from one of the service providers in this country to build their data center, what they call Tier 3 data center. That alone is worth $15 million. So we are doubling our revenue in 1 year. And that poses its own challenges. It's not something to be, you know, I say, aapke business se kahun to no. When you double your revenue, it comes, there are a lot of challenges that come with it. We'll talk about that also. So today we employ 120 people. We are in the potential of doing $30 million worth of business. So what is the challenge that we face, or I face? 3 things, and if you remember that, it'll do you a lot of good. First, all businesses are there for only one purpose, and that is to create and capture value. Think about it. Create and capture value. What do you say value in Sinhalese? What is the word for value? Economic value, not vatinakama. There's another word for it. I'm asking so many people, but they don't seem to be able to tell me. But do you understand that? Value. Create some value. In a way, it's not profits. It's more than profits, and we'll talk about that. So one is to create value. How can companies constantly create and capture value? You can create value for people, but you must be able to capture the value. That's an essence of marketing management you will learn about. Second thing, very important. How can you be different to all the others in your industry? You all know that already. Differentiation you already studied about. How to be different. Because it's only those who are different can capture extraordinary value. And the third important thing a lot of people forget is how can I sustain this business? Sustain does not mean just continuing to do what you do, because competition will come and knock you out. You all know the famous story of Kodak, who dominated the camera, film, photography industry. Finished. They didn't see digital coming. Today phones, even Jonathan doesn't even need that big fancy camera to take a photograph of the event. But that is what has disrupted completely. Nokia, the phone, Apple. Who would have ever dreamt that Apple will make a telephone? And we'll talk about some other examples of what Apple is doing. Very interesting stuff. Differentiation. So this is what keeps me on my toes. Nothing else. Not about the organization. All that is secondary. So this is what I have to get my head across. Why? Because the world is changing so rapidly. Customers are moving much faster than us because they are hooked onto information. So you all know this. If you want to buy a phone, what a lot of quick research you can find out. ඔගොල්ලෝ හොයලා බලනවනේ. Internet, this, that, all that. You අර මේක හොඳද අරක මේ iPhone එක මේක හරිය නෑනේ අරක හරිය නෑනේ whatever information. You don't even need advertising because you will go and look for that information. So you are very demanding as consumers and you are changing very rapidly. So if we cannot change as fast or faster than our consumers, we will die. And we have enough examples of companies in Sri Lanka and abroad who have just died. And these are companies that were number 1 or 2 in their industry. These are not just normal companies. They are big companies. Even as we speak, companies are dying. Minute by minute, they are dying. Sad thing is, they don't know about it. And the disruption will come from the person you least expect. Today, banks don't know who will come and take their money. The Citibank lady who spoke, she said, consumers need banking, they don't need banks. And at the Mobile World Congress, John Chambers, CEO of Cisco, said, telecom companies will be out of business. You can already see that. Look at what WhatsApp did. Who are the people who use WhatsApp? WhatsApp messages. So, SMS business, gone. Why did Facebook pay 12 or 13 or 14 or 15 billion dollars for a company that had 50 employees? No revenue, very little no revenue, no profit. And you pay, so in management it's all wrong now. Why? You have to show that earnings multiple they'll pay for valuation. ඔක්කොම වැරදිනේ ඉගෙන ගත්ත දේවල්. But what did they have? They had 500 million customers. Facebook figured out, I know how to make money out of that 500 million. You charge 1 cent a day, US cent. How much do you get? $50 million. So, they figured that out. So the point is, this is the challenge, and I'm going to talk about leadership in that context. Value creation, differentiating, and sustaining a business. Google, 2012, $50 billion of revenue. What is their profit? 27%. So that's more than 10 billion. So today, because Google, the airlines can't differentiate. Google is in a very unique place. They dominate the search advertising market. Today, as a result, because of Google's earnings potential, they are worth 3 times more or 5 times more than all the American airlines put together. Who would have thought? These airlines have aircraft, engine, people, passengers. They are creating value, but they are not able to capture most of the value. It goes somewhere else. So, in that context, about myself. Now, how did I come to this? I don't know. I didn't go to your management and information technology degree. In fact, I can share a secret. I failed my A-levels. I'll tell you why. Maybe because there was no faculty, because they put me in the science medium. Now, I was very I'll come to that in a minute. But my life started with a family of 11 children. Only my father was working. My eldest sister was 19 when I was born. I was the youngest. When I was 4, my father dropped dead. Heart attack. Why? 20 children, 11 children he had in 20 years. He was 40 years, my mother was 20. 24 years later, he dropped dead. What does my mother do? 11 children, only the eldest is married, rest. So, she faced a very uncertain future. But she obviously had some kind of leadership qualities. She had to take control of the situation. And we had no wealth. We lived in a rented house. We were lower middle class. So, but she had faith. She was a Catholic in God. So I asked her before she died, and I used to have good conversations with her. So I asked my mother, so what did you feel? You're not afraid? No. Why? Because I thought that God will provide. But having said that, she started doing some practical things because God is not going to throw bread at her. So she somehow showed some qualities of leadership, got us all educated, and brought us out of school. But the important thing in my life that I found, and I'm going to surprise you when I say this, is I was very fortunate that my father died when I was 4. Now you must think, I say, what the hell, man, this fellow is a mad fellow. He's saying he's very happy that his father died when he was 4 years old. But why do I say that? Because my father was a very conservative Catholic, like some of these, not an extremist, but conservative. He thought there is a certain way that Catholic children must think and believe and all that. So if he lived, he would have controlled my mind. I wouldn't have been free as I was. He died, my mother was too busy running the family. I grew up without any interference. My mind was set free. I could watch what the elders were doing, and I was on my own. And no pressure. How many of you did Shishatva exam? Shishatva? My God. Overwhelming majority. You know the pressure of doing the Shishatva exam? From grade 1 or 2 classes. Panthi or Muna Panthi, Shishatva. So your childhood is gone, finished. Because you are studying. And all that studies is not going to help you. We'll come to that. So I fortunately escaped all of that, and I was able to develop myself, and I had a lot of time for acting, theatre, singing, sports, and I was pretty good in my studies as well. Up to O-levels, I was right on top. First 2, 3, 4, I was okay. Came A-levels, science medium. All the top students go to science. I went to science. But I was terrible in maths. It was very abstract. I can't understand abstract things so easily. If I had, that time also they had commerce. But commerce is only for those who are not qualified for science, not qualified for arts. Science, you remember, in school. So science is, commerce is, commerce. So I went to do science. But I couldn't handle the examination system. I was interested in science, in what Max Planck or Bohr or anybody. I was very interested in what they were doing. But that doesn't help you to get through your exam. You have to study and answer the paper. We'll talk about that. So I flunked. But at that time, I came in contact with a very interesting person called Bala Tampo. Who has heard of Bala Tampo? Bala Tampo. One young man at the end. 2. I'm very impressed. Bala Tampo, I can understand that you don't know him. He died a few months ago, age 93. Till his dying day, he drove an old Volkswagen car, and he was actively involved in the CMU, Ceylon Mercantile Union. He had a political organization. At 15 years, my brother was in the CMU. He took me for a talk on Bala Tampo, on Marxism. So I went there. And he didn't teach us about Karl Marx or Lenin or Che Guevara or Trotsky or Mao Zedong or anything. He said to be a true revolutionary, you have to overcome 2 things, fear and shame. Fear, because from Podi Kale after, always fear, no, worship this one, worship that one, Vaninda, Deviyan Wanse, Kakkaino, Kanda, Kavanatang. All the time you're frightened. Natta loku bappi avila wata hondata bani or kavanatang and terrorize, no? Fear. Religious fear or other fear. And shame. From the small age. Small child runs in naked, chee, jangyak kanaganda. So that fellow is thinking, what the hell is this? So you are taught to be ashamed of yourself also. So he said to be a revolutionary, you have to overcome fear and shame. And I, to a great extent, I got that into my head. So I was never afraid to ask questions, to take leadership. But sometimes I was humiliated for this. In school, now I remember, and that's why I say schools are not very good for creative thinking. I'll come to that. Now in school, in one lesson, religious knowledge. So I asked the master, it was grade 10 I think, or I can't remember. I asked this master some questions, not out of the ordinary. He didn't have the answers. So he felt a little humiliated. I mean, he felt a little upset. He shouldn't have. He should have said, let's talk about it. But schools are not geared for that. Next lesson was Sinhala. So he said, Sinhala pot genapu nathaya nagita palla. I forgot to bring my Sinhala book. I stood up. He thought here is an opportunity for him to slam him. He said, Naginda puttu. So I stood on the chair, grade 10. All the fellows, no, they are laughing. How's the weather up there and all that. So I'm looking thoroughly, smiling. Then he called me a kuhakya. Because in Catholic lesson, my question was about, there's a group of people called Parisivaru. Who are the Catholics here? Any Christians? And you know Parisivaru, right? Pharisees. And he said, Parisivare, kuhakek, horek, master lagin boru prashnahano, patlawanda. And he humiliated me. But fortunately, I laughed at it and I didn't feel. But supposing it was someone else, finished. They will never ask a question. So we'll come to that about creative thinking, how important it is and how you can play a role because you are combining technology and management. So I went through that. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I started in banking and I was involved in the bank union at that time. I was with this young gentleman here, Shastra, his father, who was the secretary of the Bank Employees Union. I was the treasurer. I was only 22. His father told me he was 25. His father told me that I happened to be the youngest office bearer of a national trade union. It was a national union of bank employees, 16,000 employees. I was 22. So I used to have big rows with management and led a strike and all that. Now you all are familiar with strikes, isn't it? Today also now your students are out there protesting about some important matter, I'm sure. So I got involved in the trade union movement. So I was more interested in that, but I also did some banking. Then I moved out, and because I got a little disillusioned with the trade union movement, never mind, got into IT. And that's how I started this journey. But what I'm finding is, as we face this challenge of value, differentiation, and sustaining the business, the one quality that people are looking for, what is it? Now we all know that the future will be largely driven by technology. We know that. Because if you try to do what we are doing today, the way we are doing it today, the planet will get destroyed. For example, if China did everything that the US did 50 years ago, the environment will be finished. Recently, they did a survey of 3,000 American CEOs or global CEOs. And they asked the question, IBM did this survey. They asked the question, what is it, as you face the uncertainties of the future, as a big global companies, what do you see as the single most important thing that bothers you? You know what they said? Not technology, not management, not HR. They said, we want creative thinking. Thinking. First thinking, hopefully creative thinking. Think something different. That is the quality we look for as we try to build and grow this business. Now comes the sad news. The education system, not only in Sri Lanka, even in the world, does not teach you to think creatively. In fact, just the opposite. They kill creative thinking. Higher education is no better. Look at the people who run higher education in this country. Are they thinking people? I don't think so. And how do they treat you? They treat you, the future generation, like cattle. They don't treat you with respect. Now your boys are seated there, or girls. You think they care? Are they challenging them and say, let's have a conversation? What is it that you have to talk about? Let's talk about it. Do they ask you for your input on the curriculum? No. Because somebody thinks we know better than all of them. But today, on the way to this seminar, I had a chat with Shasta. He's as young as you are. How old are you? 25. I asked him, and Jonathan, tell me now, what should I talk about? And he gave me some interesting ideas, which I'm already incorporating into this. Because creative thinking, ladies and gentlemen, is what is important. And you are not going to learn creative thinking in Peradeniya or Harvard or anywhere. Some places, yes. But because our education system is only geared for standardized testing. We know this. It's nothing to do with the lovely people in the faculty who are here. Nothing to do with it. They have to do their job. But I'm happy to hear, I spoke to Sandhya Salgado, who spoke to you all. She told me that particularly the management and information technology faculty here has done a lot of good work. And it's a big difference to the Kelaniya University when she came. But the point is, you have an opportunity to think outside of what you learn in the university. Because today you have the opportunity of the information on the internet. Now, a lot of the stuff that I picked up about that survey, about creative thinking and all that, I learned from watching YouTube videos, reading, learning. So you have that opportunity. But if you're thinking of building your career only with what you know or learn here or in school, then I'm sorry to say, you may not become the next leader. You'll get a job. But you won't differentiate yourself from others, and you won't be contributing to a success of a company like us. So, I think the first thing that we need from people like you is thinking. Can you come to our organization and challenge a few things and say, maybe data karana hundai neda. Now, the other day I was talking to some students, Microsoft and Colombo. I happened to go to the toilet before the lecture started. Now, they were talking about the upcoming cricket match, Sri Lanka, South Africa. Now, there they were expressing their opinions very freely. One fellow is saying, now, they don't know that I was in the bathroom. That fellow is saying, Tunsiak vitara gavanam, Tunsiak madibam, Tunsiya vissakvat gaanwale. And then he's giving a big analysis on the bowling attack and all that. Now, at university or in his job, he won't express his opinion because some companies don't allow you to express your opinion. Now, supposing they said, අපි දැන් එනවරුද ලාභය කොච්චරක් කරන්න ඕනද? ලාභ මිලියන 120ක්. ඒක මදිනේ බං. අපි දැන් මෙතන තියෙන තත්ත්වය හැටියට දැන් පඩි දැන් බලන්න අපිට කොච්චර බ්ලා බ්ලා බ්ලා. මම නම් හිතන්නේ මචං මේ කම්පැනි 120ක්වත් කරේ නැත්නම් මැච් එක පරදිනවා අපි ෂුවර් එකට. That they won't say. Because one, they are not given the space to express their opinion. Secondly, they are a little frightened. Because it may not be the right question to ask or the right answer. So that curtails them. So that is the point from your side. From our side, what do I think we look in people? So to turn the question the other side, we try to create an organization, one where the leadership is very clear about where we are going. What is the purpose of this company? Very clear idea. And I'll talk about that in Q&A. So, we have to have a very clear idea about what this company is all about. Now, and not only that, you must be able to take the people with you on that journey, which means, like your Dell says, we need to inspire people. Now, we try to do that. Now, for example, we have in our company a gentleman. It's a classic story for you to think about. He was working at e-channeling. He was, I think, an IT administrator or he was a call agent. He was getting a salary of 15,000 rupees.